today we are going to be speaking with the amazing Jessy Warn from HR Gurus, who's going to be talking about the Great Resignation. I hadn't even heard of it until a few days ago, so I'm really excited about hearing more and learning about what I should do about it. Welcome, Jessy.
Hi, Maureen. Thanks for having me on the show today.
My pleasure. Now, before we jump in and talk about all these hordes of people who are potentially going to resign around the world and in Australia, could you tell us something that's maybe interesting or quirky about yourself? I didn't pre-warn you, but...
What is interesting? Gosh, Maureen, I've been in lockdown for so long, but when I'm not in lockdown, I love to go scuba diving and I like musical theatre. So I can't wait to unleash on the world again.
I know. I once went scuba diving in the bay. My weight belt was a bit heavy. Luckily, it wasn't too far down.
Sink to the bottom?
Yeah, I went to the bottom a bit too quickly, but, it wasn't too deep.
I'm a warm water girl.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me, what is the Great Resignation?
So the Great Resignation is this phenomenon that has happened across the United States, and they're predicting will happen in Australia, that about 40% of workers are thinking about leaving their jobs. So that is the Great Resignation, and it's something that employers need to prepare for, because if you lost 40% of your workforce, you're in trouble.
Yeah. And so where the heck is this coming from? Like, what would you say are some of the biggest factors making this happen right now?
I think the biggest factor is what we've gone through in the last 18 months. So people being locked down, you can't change that much about your life at the moment. You can't even get a haircut. You can't go on holidays. And so people have been working at home for the last 18 months and they're thinking, I need a change. Also, they want more out of life. Like, they've had a lot of time to think about what's important to them. And so if they've been doing the same job at home, locked down, they're bored and they want something exciting. And also how they've been treated by their employers. If they feel like their employer doesn't really care about them, they're out.
Yeah, for sure. And is it that people think they have more options now because, with the workforce, it's no longer every day in the office?
Yeah, definitely. So you can work remotely more easily. But I think as well what we're also seeing is, well, in Australia particularly, is that the candidate market is dry. So we call it a name your price market. There is not much talent out there. So I think if you've been treated well during the COVID lockdowns, you're not really looking to leave. And we've also had no immigration. So there's no new talent coming into the country. And if you look on any of the job platforms, even on Instagram, right from hospitality all the way to financial services, you're seeing we are hiring. So it's a name your price kind of market. So it's really good incentive. If you want to leave, now's a great time to find a job. Yeah.
And so what are the, because often people say, oh, money's important in a role, but it's often not everything. So if people want their employees to stay, what things can they do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we've been talking to our clients about is defensive retention, because we know that this is coming. Yeah, protect your business. And you really need to treat your team well, but understand what's important to them, because everybody's different. So definitely the flexibility in work and having that, we're seeing a lot of that hybrid work model going on. So some people can't wait to get back into the office, those extroverts like yourself, Maureen, that just want to engage with people and be face to face again. But some people are shitting themselves about going back into the office. They love working from home. It works for them. you can pick up your kids and spend more time with your family, and they don't want to go back to the office. So it's about building flexibility into your work practices, because we've realised we can effectively work from home, and working out what those employees need, and then also just caring about them, what's important to them.
Yeah. And so, because you work with, hundreds of businesses, so what, give some employers out there some ideas. What could flexibility for their employees look like?
Um, so a really good option is to ask them, do a survey, find out who wants what and what you can accommodate. Obviously, some roles are face to face. It's going to be pretty hard to be a barista when you're working from home, or if you are working in healthcare or aged care, you can't do it. But if you have a job where you're able to work from home, some people might want the flexibility to say, look, 3 days a week, I'd love to work from home. 2 days a week, I'll come into the office. Really good employers are like, whatever you want. Like, if you want to work from home and that's where you do your best work, go for it. And that's what employees and candidates are looking for. And if you're not competing on that level with flexibility, you're going to lose a lot of, talent attraction in the market.
Yeah, because I remember back in the day when I worked in roles, it was quite innovative then, where we were allowed to, take some time off to get your hair cut or go to the dentist or whatever. And now it's just like we do it with our team. Oh, you want to get vaccinated, off you go. If you want time off, we'll accommodate. Do you think that that's important to people, and that a lot of workplaces are now doing those sorts of things?
I think it's so important, and I think it's almost expected. I think when new employees start, that's what they're looking for, is that I'm a human, I'm a whole person, I'm not a robot, and I bring my whole self to work. So, that might mean that I have to go to the dentist, or that I need this afternoon off, and then I can make it back up, at another time. So I think it's super important to be able to be flexible. And I think now more than ever, when you've got, candidates choosing where they want to work, if you're not offering those types of incentives and flexibility, they're going to go somewhere that they can get that.
Yeah, for sure. And so we've talked about flexibility. What other things are there that employers can do to attract good people?
So I think having, caring about your employees. So a lot of employers are saying, right, we're opening up on Monday. I'm here in Victoria, and the roadmap got changed. So we were all going to open up and be able to go back to the office on the 8th of November, and now it's the 1st. And some employers have just said, okay, well, we'll see you back in the office on Monday, with no care for the fact that people need a bit of a transition, and no one's checked in with them in the whole 18 months. Hey, are you okay? So having those conversations, if you're a larger organization, having wellness initiatives and being able to really show your employees that you care about them. And if you're smaller, well, it's really easy to have those check-ins and show your team that you're there for them and you care about them. Yeah.
And so, for instance, I, back in the day when I was doing a lot more, training and coaching, and I even did wellness sessions for organisations, they're hard to measure exactly. So we did, I ran a finance 101. I did a thing about in the workplace, the different way Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, baby boomers, the differences and how they're treated. I know some workplaces have meditation or massage, but they're hard to measure, at the time. Do you think overall they're worth it?
Definitely. I think that the more that you can do to show your employees that you care, and the more the more, whether it's getting someone external and doing those things that you care about them, like caring about their wellness is super important. You're not just a robot to me. You're not just a resource. You're a human. Like that's really important. People want to work where they feel cared about. I think the other big thing is, that reward and recognition and actually acknowledging the work that people have done. Giving people feedback is really, really important. So, if we look at how people have been working over the last 18 months, they've been working their arse off. The work boundaries and life boundaries are really blurred. So you've got people working late and putting so much in, and they don't feel recognised or acknowledged for the hard work that they've done. And that's an amazing, it's easy, but it's a amazing retention strategy to recognise people when they're putting in the hard yards for you.
Yeah. And so there's obviously verbal recognition, to the individual themselves. They might be doing it in a team meeting, etc. But what other ways can you implement reward and recognition strategies?
So there's also financial reward and recognition strategies. So whether that's in the way of, an incentive plan. So we've been working with a lot of clients on sort of those long-term incentive plans as well, which work as a retention strategy. So the longer you're here, then, and you perform well, then you're able to earn more money. So that's really good. Peer-to-peer recognition is also fantastic, and just really, recognizing and singing the praises of people that are working their asses off makes them want to stay more. But you put your money where your mouth is, I guess, and it's often cheaper to put in place these retention strategies than rehire, because what we do know is that rehiring someone, when somebody leaves, it's going to cost you about 90% of their salary to replace them by the time you get them up to scratch and you get them trained and you've recruited somebody. The disruption that it has on your business, it's 90% of their salary. So it's much cheaper to invest in the people that you do have rather than, lose them and having to start the whole process again.
Yeah. So it sounds like, people should be thinking about it now, and starting to implement some of these things sooner rather than later.
Definitely. Definitely invest in the people that you've got. So whether, a lot of them are looking for career progression and development. So, talking to them about what you can do, whether it's putting them through a development course, depending on what their role is, just showing your people that you care for them.
Yeah, yeah. Because we often say to the team, if there's a course you really want to do, we want to support you around it. So I think those things are really important. So Jessy, what's the time frame on this? Do you think that it's, the Great Resignation is going to last, just until we come out of COVID, or what's your prediction around it?
So the prediction in the papers, like I'm not making this Great Resignation up. The prediction is that it's going to be for at least the next 6 months. So we're going to see this happen over the next 6 months. I think as people are coming out of lockdown, they're realizing, hey, this isn't what I want anymore. There's so much opportunity. I've been sitting here doing the same thing, and my life is short. And that's what COVID has taught us all. Is like, I don't want to be spending the rest of my life doing something that I hate. So, what can you do to ignite the passion of your team and show them that you care and that they're a whole person? How can you make that? And that's, tapping into your people, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned peer-to-peer programs and support. So tell me a bit about that.
So peer-to-peer is when you get your team to recognise and acknowledge someone who's made a difference to them, and it's a really powerful way to give feedback. I don't think that should be done on its own as a cop out from the leaders giving feedback themselves, but actually it's really nice to hear why you're valued and appreciated when you go out of your way to help your team members. And it also helps to really embed the values that you want your team to be living, right? So if you got a big list of all the reasons why people love working with Maureen Pound, you're going to be so much more inspired to keep doing what you're doing well, because people are seeing it and recognizing it. And so you're just creating that mechanism for that feedback to be able to happen easily.
Yeah, I quite like that, because often we get it verbally, but maybe it would be good I've just had you sparked an idea for me, Jessy. Maybe it's when you used to go to those retreats and then you put your name on the top of the page and then you pass it around and everyone writes what a quality they really like about you. It's sort of like that, isn't it? Where you could actually get people to give feedback to their peers about what they really value.
Yeah. And it's great. Like, it's small things like that make people feel good. It's like, hang on, people see me and they see what I'm doing for them, and I'm not just this cog in the wheel.
Yeah.
Like, I make a difference.
Yeah. And then also, so it makes you feel well because you're recognised, but also gives you feedback around what it is that you do that stands out, that might be unique as well. Because often we don't see our greatness, do we?
Yeah. Too often we don't see our greatness, but it's those small things that you can do, and your team can help you do it. So, we know a lot of leaders don't like giving feedback and they're not very good at it. So get your team to help you. And, it's the good stuff. We're not asking them to go out and tell them how they can improve. That's your job as a leader. But what do you appreciate about people? So yeah, those peer-to-peer recognition programs are really effective and really quite powerful.
And in terms of what like, you could do all these things, right? This is what I was in my head's going. You do all these things. You might do peer-to-peer recognition. You acknowledge staff. You give them really good pay, ongoing incentives, all those things. And still people may leave. What in terms of the industry standards, what's a normal percentage of retention?
Yeah, it depends on your industry, because some industries are going to have a lot higher turnover than others, and then it really depends on your culture. So I think that it's really hard to measure right now, but whatever it's sitting at, expect that 40% increase over the next 6 months. And it might not be something that you're doing. It might be, I've just had enough. I don't want to be a HR person anymore. I want to go be a florist. Like, I've had time to reassess my goals in life, and I want to do something completely different. But certainly if you're not being treated well and you think that the grass is greener on the other side and it's not a complete career change, it might be, I want to go work for those guys because I know that they treat people well. So it's all about also, building your brand up. We call it the employer value proposition. So why is your organisation a great place to work? What can you do to make it even better so that you're attractive to the people that are out there in the market, and you can actually hire new employees that have talent?
Yeah, definitely. So, so it sounds like there's some that you just, it's just time to move on. And we had a great guy working with us who now I see he's growing plants. And so I think, sometimes it's just not a good fit, or it's just time to move on.
Yeah, I think that's that natural, normal attrition that you're talking about, that does it sit at 10%? It really depends on obviously if you're working in hospitality, it's a much more a transient workforce, right? So it's going to be a lot higher. But each industry sort of has that benchmark of what is normal. And then if you're working in a workplace where the culture is not great, you're probably sitting at around 30 to 40% anyway. So imagine losing another 40% in the next 12 months. That's all your talent gone. So it's a huge, huge risk for businesses.
Yeah. And just on your point before around, because we've had no migration in the last 20 months, what's the word on the street about opportunities for more people from overseas to come to Australia?
Yeah, so I guess our borders are opening, which is fantastic. But I think that a lot of businesses are going to think that that is going to be the silver bullet that's going to fix everything. But it's going to take a while to get people up to speed, right, and get them the skills that they need to operate and understand the new environment that they'd be working in. So they don't get off the plane and then they're ready to jump into a new role. There is going to be a bit of a lag time to get them up to scratch.
And so if people want your support to make sure that they're supporting their staff well, that they're doing the right things by the law as well, because I think that's all a bit up in the air at the moment. What's the best way to contact you, and what sort of things are the main things you help people with?
Well, the best way to contact us, hit us up on our website, hrgurus.com.au, or you can send me an email, but we can do a half an hour chat to work out how we can help each business. We look after the whole HR life cycle. So that is from how do we attract talent and how do we fix our recruitment so that we're recruiting the best people and, having the right match, to once they're in our organisation, how do we get the best out of them and how do we make sure that they're performing, and if they're going to come to work every day, we want them to enjoy it so they can give their best, to what happens when that employment relationship goes a bit pear-shaped, how can we fix it, to exiting the employee as well. So whether that's them resigning or you having to terminate the employee, we're able to help you navigate that to minimise your risk. So it's that whole life cycle that we can assist with.
Okay, great. And what so we've talked about people potentially leaving. What are the problems are people facing at the moment that we probably won't have time to talk about here today, but that might spark an idea for them and go, oh yes, I need to speak to Jessy about that?
So a really big one at the moment is in having the right policies in place in terms of, mandatory vaccinations. What do I do with that? How do I get people back to the office safely? What about people who don't want to come back to the office? How do I manage that? This person and this person don't really like each other, but now they're going to have to sit next to each other all over again. So there might be a little bit of mediation that needs to take place between them. So those are the types of challenges that we're really finding at the moment is, the attraction and recruitment, and then how are we going to manage this return to the workplace?
Yeah, for sure. And I love your model actually, because, a lot of small business and medium-sized business are not big enough to have their own, big HR department, but it's good to have someone, a trusted advisor at the end of the phone who knows the law, who's worked with, hundreds if not thousands of businesses, who can give great advice and counsel to.
Yeah, thanks, Maureen. It's a lot of businesses are too small to have a dedicated HR resource, and sometimes, that HR resource ends up being the complaints departments if they're internal. So sometimes having them externally makes a lot of sense. So, from a financial point of view, but also from an efficiency point of view as well. So that's what we do for a lot of our clients, is we're that outsourced HR manager.
Yeah, because you could internally, especially in a small business, you could be too close to particular parties and be part of it all, really.
Yeah, and it's, this person looked at me funny, and usually when it's external, you don't hear about it unless it's actually, worth hearing about. People are like, oh yeah, no, I'll reach out to HR when I actually need it, not just, oh, can I just pick your brain about, something that I saw in a newspaper article, and they become a lot less efficient that way. And, it is about building relationships, and I'm not trying to give internal HR a bad name, but you do tend to get caught up in the water cooler politics a lot more easily when you're internal.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us today, Jessy. You gave us lots of really good tips around making sure that you retain your amazing staff. I'm sure Carmen and I will take some on board because we have a great team and really, really want them to stay, stick around because they're so good. If you want to contact or learn more about what HR Gurus can do for you, just go to hrgurus.com.au. And then you can also book a time to have a chat with one of the gurus. Or you can just email Jessy at hrgurus.com.au. So thanks, Jessy, and I hope you get out scuba diving and enjoying life a bit more soon.
Thanks, Maureen. Thanks so much for having me today.
My pleasure. Bye.
Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thanks. So if you'd like to see more interviews with amazing business owners sharing extraordinary insights, click subscribe, then click the bell button, then click all, and we'll notify you.